Headingley was mentioned in the Domesday Book, which was published in 1086. A large swathe of land belonged to Ilbert de Lacy, whose name seems to crop up in many stories about the city. Now, a large oak tree, said to date back to Viking times, was right here, and it was called the wapentake of Skyrack, or the Shire Oak. And it was a meeting place where people would come to settle arguments by brandishing their swords or their spears. And it was also a place where armies were assembled. The oak tree used to jut out into the road and gave its name to this, the original oak, and also the Skyrack over the road. Now, the oak stood here for many years, but it finally collapsed in 1941. Headingley was a village of a few hundred residents, and it remained so until the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century, when the well-off moved out here to escape the noise and pollution of much of the rest of the city. It was a place for mill owners and merchants to live, and it was also the site of the Leeds Zoological and Botanical Gardens, which was either side of this Cardigan Road long before the road was built.
It was home to exotic birds and animals such as raccoons and monkeys. But the zoo was a financial disaster. They were not allowed to open until late on Sundays so as not to tempt people away from going to church. This and a ban on alcohol on the premises led to it failing after only 8 years.
All that survives today is this, the bear pit. Now, the bear was made to climb a pole upon which it was pelted with buns thrown by members of the public. Eventually, all the surrounding land was sold off for housing, and the poor bear was put up for auction too. Headingley is, of course, synonymous with students due to its proximity to Leeds University and to this, Leeds Beckett University Headingley campus. Now, many of the buildings on this site were built in the 19th century as halls of residence, but these days they're used for teaching.
Leeds Beckett used to be called Leeds Metropolitan University, and before that it was Leeds Polytechnic. In 2013 it was renamed Leeds Beckett after one of its founding colleges, Beckett Park, which in turn was named after Ernest Beckett, the second Baron of Grimthorpe, a banker and politician.
The other side of Otley Road to the Leeds Beckett campus is the oldest cinema in Leeds, the Cottage Road. And it's also one of the oldest in the country, having been showing films continuously for more than 100 years. Now, interestingly, it wasn't built as a cinema, but as a garage and workshops.
The owner of the garage was also a pioneering film cameraman and opened his own cinema under the name Headingley Picture House. It was a great success and even had its own orchestra until films with sound came along in 1931.
In 2005, this cinema very nearly closed, with all the staff being issued with redundancy notices. But it was rescued at the last minute by Northern Morris Cinemas, and it remains a very popular destination to this day. As well as students, Headingley is also synonymous with cricket, and the cricket ground is here, inside the Headingley Carnegie Stadium. This is also home to the Headingley Rugby Stadium, and it's named after the nearby Carnegie College, the sporting facility of Leeds Beckett University.
The cricket ground opened 126 years ago and has been used for test matches for almost all of that time, although the last time the Ashes was played here was in 2009. It seats 17,500 people and has had the benefit of floodlighting since 2015. The adjacent rugby ground seats 21,000 people and is home to the Leeds Rhinos and the Yorkshire Carnegie Rugby Union Club.
Leeds City Council have recently secured £35 million worth of investment to redevelop the stadium, and it's hoped that the improvements will be ready in time for the Cricket World Cup in 2019. Whilst Headingley has its famous landmarks, there are some truly amazing buildings which are just off the beaten track. This imposing building was opened in 1868 as the Headingley Wesleyan Methodist College, and its turret includes a chiming clock by Leeds clockmaker William Potts. He made all the best clocks in the city.
The college was used for training Methodist missionaries who were sent to faraway places like Burma and Swaziland to try to gain converts to Methodism. The building was renamed Hinsley Hall in 1998 after Cardinal Hinsley, Archbishop of Westminster from 1935 until his death in 1943.
Few people know it, but Headingley has its own castle. This is Headingley Castle, built in the 1840s for a wealthy corn merchant called Thomas England. Now, England made a fortune by attempting to feed the growing population of the city of Leeds. By 1851, he was living here with his 5 children, a governess, 6 servants, a coachman and a groom. When he retired, he sold this to the Luptons, and they were ancestors of Princess Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge.
A later occupant was Colonel Frank Fulford, who made his own fortune from selling a medicine called bile beans. This was described as a laxative and tonic which would leave its users healthy, happy and slim, and it was said to be made by a chemist called Charles Ford and made from a vegetable source only known to the Aboriginal Australians. But there was no such chemist, and all of the ingredients were available in abundance in local pharmacies. The product was advertised very heavily, and despite a court case proving it to be fraudulent, it continued to be popular, being on sale until the 1980s. Fulford was also an art collector, and some of his collection is on show in Temple Newsome House.
This listed building is now converted into flats. Headingley also has some famous connections. The playwright Alan Bennett used to live above a shop opposite the Three Horseshoes pub, and JRR Tolkien, the author of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, used to live in this house right here behind me. Headingley is a vibrant mix of young professionals, students and families, but there is so much history right here on the doorstep. This is Jonathan Straight for The Lowdown.